Okay, welcome everyone to Webdelics Live AMA. My sincere apologies for our tardiness, my tardiness, Webdelics end. We had a technical glitch, but we're here. And so, yeah, huge welcome. So I'm Steve ElFrink. A lot of you have attended these webinars through these last few months. You guys know me. And so I'm the Webdelics subject matter expert. And tonight we're going to be talking with Danny and Sarah from Behold Retreats, who are with us from Costa Rica, I believe. Yep. Today. You guys are all over the place, but today, Costa Rica. Awesome. Okay. And so tonight we're going to be diving into the world of plant medicines and specifically discussing ego dissolution, shifting of identity, and rites of passage, plus other little tasty morsels, tidbits, and explorations, and probably a few tangents if these go the way they usually do. So a little housekeeping before diving in. So this is an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So we have some questions that have come in from folks out there, and we'll probably have some more questions coming in. So feel free to add in comments, questions into any social media platform you're in. And then also one other little housekeeping detail, that strange little QR code with the duck or a platypus up in the right-hand corner is a QR code to get to our website. And then we just kindly request you sign up for our newsletter that goes out every Thursday. And then also, if anyone's ever interested in being a guest on one of our shows, one of these AMAs, please reach out to Webdelics or me at steve@webdelics.com. And then a little more about me. So I'm, as I stated before, a subject matter expert for Webdelics, also a practicing psychedelic somatic therapist, which basically means I work with low-dose ketamine primarily, and in a full-time practice, Om Terra, and also doing research in dissociation and complex PTSD, and also specialize in folks who have been destabilized from psychedelics. But enough about me. So I'm excited. I'm always excited, but yeah, excited because we have two amazing guests tonight. And I think just some folks who, there's walking the talk and two folks who are walking the talk here. And, for my dive into what they're doing it, in my opinion, humble, not so humble sometimes, the right way, as far as the level of safety, the focus on integration, the preparation, and just the integrity they bring to this work. So Danny and Sarah, I'm going to basically turn it over to the two of you to just kind of introduce yourselves, a little bit background, how you got in, anything you want to share about Behold, because I think Behold Retreats is amazing. The number of retreat centers you have, the focus, again, you have on the prep and the integration process, the different medicines you're working with. So I'll turn it over to either one of you, whoever wants to dive in, and just take the mic from Steve. Yes.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, of course, and just the ability to be here with you and to engage your audience and those that are, tuning in one way, shape, or form. So I really appreciate the platform and the opportunity. Sarah and I are loving partners that have really stepped into this work. I've been on this path for, I would say, maybe 16 years now, and I'm the guy you want to go to when things get difficult. So, and I mean that in the sense, of course, I'm the one that really makes sure that the space where you're at is grounded, that the space where you're at is safe, that the space where you're at really is held in a very soft, gentle, but also stern way, and make sure that things are, in the right place. And this came from me on a path that I discovered through recognizing depression for the first time in my life. I came from a military background. I was I'm originally born in Venezuela, but as a kid went to military school, and that formation really boxed me into this little box where military mode kicks in areas of your life. And for many years I was in that box, the way I used to think, the way I used to process things, etc. And encountering depression that came through decades later, I found myself in this aspect of recognizing what this was. And in one way, shape, or form, it brought me to a path of discovering plant medicines. And of course, the discovery of this for me was it was quintessential. And I say this because I come from a skeptical mind. I have a hard time reading books because I just need to understand who the author is and what his shtick is all about before I can dive into anybody else's aspect. And and for the most part, I'm really skeptic about things, right? I question things. I look at things carefully. And of course, when I came into the walks of plant medicines, I had no idea. I was anti-pills, anti-drugs, anti all these things for me. And of course, stepping into that was completely new. And I stepped into it with a desire to change the way I was thinking and be open-minded for a minute. Let me step into this for 1 second. And it brought me into an incredible aspect of recognizing and self-awareness and self-acknowledgement. And of course, the immensity of the universe and everything that comes together. And it was with deep awe and utter respect and huge curiosity that took me into 16 years, of walking this path. I took a 10-year, it was going to be a 1-year sabbatical, and I took a 10-year sabbatical and just dedicated myself to full diving into the research, knowledge, and understanding of all the different entheogenic plant medicines that are out there. So that's been there. And of course, here I am today with Behold Retreat, with Sarah and myself that are really leading the pathway of creating an ideal place, an ideal space for many people to really kind of step into this container that they can then really find themselves and find a way that they can self-actualize or improve aspects of their lives in so many ways. So that's a little bit about me. I'll leave it to Sarah to kind of show us all the beauty that's behind everything that happens here.
Yeah. Well, Danny, thank you for that. I really appreciate the openness, the vulnerability, sharing about your depression, how that kind of led you into this. So thank you for that. I always appreciate someone who kind of goes through the trenches, discovers things, and comes out on the other side willing, wanting to be in service.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
I appreciate that. And then Sarah, let's hear from you.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us. It's a joy to be here. I always love adding after Danny says he's been in plant medicine for 17 years that I get to say 30 years is how long I have been practicing with plant medicine. Practicing would be an extension of the word. So 30 years ago is when I experienced my first fungi medicine and started from a place of curiosity, just curiosity in myself and world and connection and all of the things. We may or may not dive into this a bit, but around a few years after that, the war on drugs started. I don't know if many people in my age or age bracket remember the skillet and the egg that says, this is your brain on drugs. Oh, yeah. And I thought, these really are intense experiences and my brain is developing. And so I stopped. And then I go into a college that was a very big football drinking college. And then I go into corporate world, which involved networking, which also involved just climbing the corporate ladder and all of the things that perhaps brought me off of my dharma, off of my path's purpose. And looking back, I could probably say that it was my soul, my spirit that started redirecting me. At the time, I would probably have called it curiosity again. It was curiosity that brought me back to even moving to Costa Rica, which is where I met Danny. And we both had a separate plant medicine path and then brought it together and started building from areas of which through our own discoveries, we fundamentally, experientially knew that the safer people felt, the deeper they could go. And so we wanted to start creating those spaces where people, were safe and felt safe. So I think that was one of the basis for how we got to where we are now was through our own experiences, building really solid foundations for people to step into this medicine.
Beautiful. I love the safer to go deeper. Yes.
Yeah.
That's huge. It's huge. And that's, there's so much importance about the relational container, the safety of the container, the solidness of the people that are, whether it's, a group or an individual one-on-one, but the confidence and the solidity of that human that's taking you into the depths of possibly hell, that they can hold the space for you no matter what shows up is so important. And
Yeah,
then
so many of us, probably you included, have had experiences that we had no guidance. We had no preparation. We had no integration, no processing help. We were just on our own. And so
Yeah.
we're trying to, I think all three of us, be that person, those people that
Yeah.
are holding that hand and guiding people.
the what the hell was that experience?
Yes.
And then I'm gonna brag. So I'm the OG here. So I had 43 years experience. So
Woohoo! We should
Not
add
that
it
it-
all up, and then
not
we'd have a
that-
great kind of number.
I mean, the irony of it doesn't really matter. I mean, anyway, it's all fun. All good. Okay, let's dive in. So we've got some juicy questions coming up. Oh, before juicy questions, quick little bit on Behold and the plant medicines you guys are working with, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Yeah, appreciate that. So we primarily focus on three main medicines that we work with, and in this case, ayahuasca, of course, is our one of our main therapeutic medicines, and they all have a level of therapy, but I'll bring ayahuasca first in that case. And then, of course, we work with the Bufo 5-MeO DMT. That is the probably one of the strongest entheogens out there. It's a peak medicine. We work with the natural one version of that, by the way, and this is more towards our alumni, but it's a plant-based, seed-based 5-MeO DMT, which is a snuff, and it's called Yopo, and it's several hours worth of that peak experience rather than a short one like Bufo. Yeah, and then lastly we have our psilocybin, in which we work with psilocybin specifically and have one particular ceremony under what we call psilohuasca, and it's a combination of sorts, let's say, that allow for people to go really deep, again using that word, into these journeys. So those are the three fundamentally ones. We work with other ones, but those are just for alumni and different sorts of educational purposes that we work with those other entities.
Cool. My quick question is, the psilohuasca, is that like a Syrian rue combo or?
Very good, but it would be actually the cappy itself, right? So we're using the
So,
cappy as the MOA emitter. That's why the psilohuasca.
You got access. So.
Right.
Who needs Syrian rue?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's dive into our first question. So questions will be coming up here on the screen for folks in the audience and for us too. And I'll be reading these questions, even though you can see them, but for those folks driving in the car. So why do people say ayahuasca finds you rather than the other way around?
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
It's a wonderful question, actually, right? It's that calling that people kind of speak of and discuss, but the aspect of how it finds you it's really more of what internally is happening with self, with the individual.
Yes.
I think people are a lot more open and aware of how connected we are. I think quantum physics has shown us the quantum world expanded up that makes more scientists believer in maybe some of the woo-woo stuff that was questioned before. So the level of connecting. So when we are stepping into this spirit self, we find ourselves in that calling and a desire, and then people gather us. There's a certain level of mystery that I would like to keep within why these things happen, but it will find you, and it's really finding you because of what you are seeking, and whether you know it consciously or subconsciously, it's taken place. And I think that's a beautiful thing in the aspect of where Mother Earth is calling. It's calling his children. And I think that the level of ayahuasca is that channel where people are ingesting this brew that takes several days of reduction into this one cup that you end up ingesting. It goes right into the gut system, and it releases all that data, all that beautiful information of Mother Earth, which I would call the Earth Wide Web, and that you ingest that.
Like that one.
Bring that knowledge that comes in. So in essence, I think that's what happens sometimes to some of us.
Beautifully stated. Thank you. Sarah, any 2 cents, 10 cents you want to add to that?
Sure.
She'll throw a quarter in there.
$1.250. Let's take
The question made me think of my own experience of how I came connected to ayahuasca. First, when I was around 28 years old, a friend of mine went to an ayahuasca ceremony, and just something about the word stuck with me. I didn't know what it was. And when I asked him, okay, how do I find that? He said, oh, it'll find you. And I said, no, like literally give me the phone number. I want to go find
1-800 ayahuasca.
Yeah. And he gave me an email address, and things just didn't line up. Maybe that mystery you're talking about. Yes. And then I went to Iquitos, Peru, not specifically for ayahuasca, but it was on a 2-year traveling journey. And I heard that ayahuasca was really prevalent in Iquitos. I was on the street asking people. Somebody brought me to, oh yeah, my cousin serves it. And I was like, could I see the space before ceremony? It was a basement. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. No. And I did end up doing ayahuasca in the middle of the jungle outside of Iquitos with, again, no preparation, no integration, no nothing. And because I didn't physically feel safe as a woman, as somebody about to do very deep psychedelic work, I didn't dive in. And so this is making me think it wasn't my time. It wasn't my time. And so that's why me searching for it, it didn't connect. Mm-hmm. And then when I came to Costa Rica, it did find me and started this path. That's my 2 cents. I think those were cents, not quarters.
that was the $1.250. That's a cool story. And then I really appreciate how it brought you to Costa Rica, where it just boosh, sounds like everything unfolded.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a beautiful way. One thing I think is also fascinating related to this and how like ayahuasca finds you is also how the medicine starts working before the ceremony. Yes. So if you have like in 3 weeks, you're doing X, Y, or Z, all of a sudden things start percolating. The dreams start coming. The synchronicities start happening. The memories of something that you didn't remember float in. I actually have goosebumps. It's amazing. And the number of people that report that. I'm curious, anything you guys want to add on that? Is that something you hear from clients or yourselves?
Almost every retreat, somebody will start talking about how the medicine worked as soon as they made that 100% I'm coming. And it's quite spectacular. And then also at Behold Retreats, we really hold people through the process, and we are also strict. Like we give people dietas and we say this is how you will benefit the most out of this experience. We even make them sign agreements of how they'll treat themselves, how they'll be on retreat, and even afterwards that they will continue this process. We really know that that's the difference between having a profound experience and 5 years later saying I had a life-changing experience. And so that is very important to us at Behold. And so people have come and said, from the moment they decided, like you said, those synchronicities, memories coming, and then the dieta already changing the way in which they relate to what they are consuming, both physically, food and drinks, as well as what they're allowing into their life with humans or social media. And so absolutely, it starts right away.
Yes, magic happens.
Magic, yeah.
I think, the aspects of when you've made that decision, right? So I think everything starts within the gut. It follows, it starts with the spirit connecting through the gut sending you some of these signals and messages. And eventually, you make the decision. And it's in that decision that everything transforms, even at a quantum level. Everything changes and it starts to realign itself. And here you are now in the process of now taking into consideration that, I'm going to do ayahuasca. And you haven't even started researching yet, but you're not saying it out loud, but in your subconscious, I'm going to do this thing. And you start to research. But that moment that I'm going to do this thing changes everything.
Yes.
Never thought about this, but I to my core believe that the universe is on our side. And once 100%. We start recognizing that, then the universe said, Sarah's showing up. I'm going to show up too. And I think that's a piece of it as well. The universe is saying, okay, we're doing this together now.
Yeah, like you're in, I'm in. Let's go.
Yep.
Yes. And and even though we have a 7-week program that we bring people, we do this primarily because we know how important it is. Time now is the biggest and most valuable commodity that a human has, right? Time. Yes, period. 100%. So we believe that greatly. And for us, it's really important that if you're going to dedicate time for yourself, not for us, but for yourself, and you're going to invest in yourself, to take time for yourself, well, we value that. It's huge. It's important. Like you're going to dedicate to break away from everything you're doing ordinarily in your life to come and step out of, your comfort zone. And even though we have very comfortable spaces and places, you're stepping into this line of work. And this moment begins where you're now ultimately just processing already so much healing that's taken place, because the dieta puts you in a level of awareness that you weren't there before. Now you're paying attention. You're paying attention to everything. You're eating everything you're consuming. And even though we're wanting your alchemy to be just right for this medicine, we want to look at all the details that we've looked into to make sure that you have the highest level success of coming here. Right. And of course, we take care in detail in that. But the process begins there. That decision making comes in and the healing starts to take place. The changes starts to. We had one guest, and I'll let Sarah maybe share this.
I love this story, and I don't like sharing this story, but you started it, so I'll tell you.
We got to hear it.
Yeah.
I know. We had one person sign up maybe about 2 or 3 months before the retreat started, and he was really at a point at which he needed to shift. And when I say that, I mean ready to give up on life. And so he said, I'm going to do it all. And he followed the dieta, he followed the practices. And maybe a week before retreat, he said, I, for the first time, feel healthy. So this was somebody going from processed foods and depressive states and not going outside to doing all of the things. And he said, I don't want to mess up where I am right now. I have discipline. I have my morning routine. I have my evening clothes down. And one guest ever didn't come. He didn't come to retreat because the process he took from when he signed up to right before retreat had such an impact on his life. And I said, well, call us when you want to. There's expansion.
Beautiful. Perfect. Yeah, that's a great story, though. Yeah. And I think also what's just fascinating about this, excuse me, it's just, I'm a big fan of energy in, energy out. So the more like intention, the more focus, the more like what you're saying to the universe is I'm in. Yeah. I'm really in. And the universe is awesome. Me too. You're really in? I'm really, really in then.
Yeah.
It pays
and it's
off.
powerful. Now you got a powerful teammate.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's, part of our process here. Our retreats are invite only. And in the invitation, there's that process that you are genuinely ready to step into this line of work, right? The idea is to bring humans, selected humans that we curate into a space that everyone is putting that same intention forward. Wow. And what takes place from there is just absolutely magical when you're able to align all those perfectly human curated people ready to do this inner work for themselves. It's powerful, both on the healing side and even more so on the expansion side of things.
Yes, that's key. So invite only, that piqued my interest. So how does that work? The invite only for Behold retreat.
I'll start a little bit and I'll let you continue. It's not a bouncer at the bar seeing, are you handsome or beautiful enough to come in? It's, are you committed? Were you genuinely called to this medicine? And are you committed? If you learn something, if you see the highest version of yourself and you get to see where you are now, will you commit to walking that path? Danny and I are dedicated to making the world a better place. And that comes from humans that will say, yes, I want to take this route. And so I think that's the first part. Are you genuinely called and are you committed?
Yeah. And I also is the level of seriousness that's behind this level of work, right? So in the sense of that, if you just went out a couple of times to dinner and you've been hearing ayahuasca and you just want to be part of a conversation, these are things we look into, right? And there's a careful and very mindful selection process. So the idea is to really bring the right humans that are wanting to kind of step up into this field, and the more of those humans that are coming into it, well, it's like any athletic team, right? You have really top people coming in for really great things.
That's excuse the throat. There we go. That's very cool. I didn't realize, that depth you guys are kind of doing the screening process, and I applaud that. Yes.
Yeah. We want to know when, say I'm a guest coming to a retreat, that I am safe to dive deep to go through this medicine. And that means, am I physically, mentally, emotionally capable of receiving this medicine? We also want to know the people next to us in ceremony are also safe. And so
that's huge.
That doesn't mean not distracting. That doesn't mean they don't feel compressed or depressed or angry. Like we are accepting of all the ways that people come. It's just, we have small retreats. We have 8 to 11 people. And so we make sure that their readiness is there. And sometimes that readiness isn't a no, it's a not yet. Let's take some steps to get fit, and then get the invitation.
I like to call it surgical work.
There we go. Yes. And I love 8 to 11. So I know a lot of ceremonies, it's like 30, 50, 60 people. I don't know. Safety first. Do no harm. Okay. Well, I think we spent about 20 minutes on our first question.
Oh, gosh.
Which I love. I mean,
Yeah.
So we'll go to our next one here. Okay. So what's the biggest misconception people have before their first ceremony?
I think, there's this big, huge misconception around purging or throwing up. There's this thing, and I often wonder, does this come because, in years past or whenever you were just hugging the toilet and kissing it without any really incredible outcome or results from what you did the night before? And, it's important to note that purging is not an axiomatic kind of thing. It doesn't just happen because it's going to happen. It happens for various reasons. So there's a misconception around it because people assume that that's what's going to happen. But in reality, the more prepared you are for this medicine, and I'm talking body-wise, physiologically wise, alchemy-wise, in that sense, then the easier that process will go. There's also, the purge effect that comes from the medicine itself, cleansing, cleaning, detoxing, and also the energetic purges that take place. And these are aspects of learning how to release and let go what's really not there for you anymore. And so those are variations but the misconception is that everyone assumes that's exactly what's going to happen when they come to something like this, and maybe put a lot more value into the whole process versus the incredibleness that can come from that.
Sarah,
I think a lot of people have a misconception that the ceremony is the transformation, when to me the ceremony is the knowledge. We learn about ourselves, we learn about the universe, we learn about each other and connection. Wisdom comes from actively living that knowledge, and that happens when we leave. And so that's where I think people might feel like they're going to be transformed. And in some ways we will be transformed, especially on the expansion side. It's really incredible. But the lifelong transformation is through living, taking those actful steps afterwards.
Yes. Yeah, it's work.
It's work.
And I think, that's one of the bigger misconceptions also, just that like, hey, a single pill or a single ceremony is going to change my life and cure everything. Well, sometimes maybe, and sometimes there's a lot of work to it.
Yeah.
And
there's one I want to add there, which I think has a lot of meaning and value potentially, in the sense that some people only look at ayahuasca as thinking, I'm doing this because there's something wrong with me. Right? I'm doing this because, and some people will shy away from that, thinking that's, oh no, I have nothing wrong. I'm okay. I don't have any issues. Why would I want to do that? Or even associate myself with people that have either drug addictions or patterns of addiction or abuse or whatever it is. I'm not one of them. But in reality, is the misconception here is how huge this is when you're learning about understanding into biohacking, for instance, and knowing that, a lifeline of deep meditation can take place in a single ceremony, bringing you into an altered state of consciousness that could be extremely powerful for the individual. So there's some of the misconception there.
Yes, I like the flip side of that.
Indeed.
Yes, very true. Okay, we're going to go a little bit deeper here. So everyone talks about ego death. Is that really the goal?
You or me? Okay.
First even address, ego death, what that is, because some folks might not even know what that means.
Okay, I can start there. So ego death has become very popular. Some people that we know don't like the expression at all, ego death. I think ego disillusionment can be a more reality of what that looks like, especially with ayahuasca. We can talk about ego death with Bufo. So ego death is a soft disillusionment of our attachments to who we are. And so I am Sarah, and I was raised in Texas, and my partner is Danny. I have these type of parents. I was raised with this program that I loved and this program that I didn't love. And some of those can become attachments. People can also get attached to the way in which we behave after a trauma has happened. And so we get attached to these things. And so an ego disillusionment is the temporary softening of those attachments. And so we get to see perhaps who we were before all of those things came into our life, both beautiful and sad or angry inducing things. And it allows for us to also feel a connection to each other. And so maybe I don't feel so separate from you, and definitely not so separate from Danny and from the air that I breathe. We have a connection through these experiences. And what also could happen in that is as our ego starts forming again, to say, I am going to have a more observant field of that part of my ego. A lot of people look at ego as I am better than you, and it's all across the board. My fears are my ego. If I have a fear, that is my ego saying, let me keep you safe. In fact, that's a lot of what ego is. And so these ego disillusionment is saying you're safe without this. In fact, there's more growth on the other side of some of this. Now our ego is very functional in a 3D world that we live in. It helps us function. We can now just have the switch to be more an observer of the way in which we function and what are our patterns, and do we want to shift them, or are they productive and helpful? And ayahuasca, can be a conscious disillusionment. I'm seeing this loosen up and even disappear. I'm seeing this loosen up. And we then say, is this a layer to who I am, or is this a mask I wear? And so I have a friend, for example, that will say, you act different in front of your dad than you do your partner, then you're not authentic. I'm like, no, I have layers. How I act in front of my dad is different than my partner, my best friend, because I'm a layered human being. Now there's places where I do wear masks, and it's being able to tell the difference. Is this a mask that I am wearing because I don't want people to see the real me? And so that is something that can happen with ego disillusionment. Now, ego death, in Bufo, for example, ayahuasca is a longer process. You have maybe 6 hours to work with this medicine. Bufo is a very fast-acting, incredibly powerful, incredibly beautiful experience. And in that first 60 seconds, 120 seconds, that ego disillusionment comes fast. And so perhaps that's where the word ego death came from, because it feels faster and more uncomfortable. Now, we prepare to how do we surrender into a space in which that time is shorter. But I think that's where ego death and ego disillusionment can come up in plant medicine ceremonies.
And is there a goal to that? Is that the goal? I think that's kind of a cool, positioning. Is that really the goal? Is that what we're going after? And I think within even, all the, like Johns Hopkins studies, all the current research going on in the US, it's all about the mystical experience, ego dissolution. But is that always the goal?
Yeah. So I think there's different ways in which we could look at this. Philosophically, we could talk about it for an hour. And then if we want to say, in our 3D world, how is this helpful? How is it helpful to all of a sudden feel connected to everyone? If we walk down the street in the same headspace as some of these grand connections, people might not resonate with us. They might take a step back. However, how it can show up in a beneficial way in our 3D life is we have more compassion for others. We have more compassion and care for ourselves. We treat other people better because we see them as closer to humanity as ourselves and as our children and as our loved ones. So that's one way in which an ego disillusionment can help us. It also can help us see more clearly where there are fears, because our ego doesn't want us to know it's a fear. Our ego wants us to believe this is an action that will protect you, so take it. And now we have the mental capacity and ability to say, no, that is a fear, and it's a fear that I don't want to have. I'm not fully growing in my business relationships because I'm afraid if the relationship ends, I'll lose everything. That's a fear. Let's keep going. Let's keep building, not out of fear, but out of doing something incredible. So this is how that ego disillusionment can help us in our everyday life, with our partners, with our friends, with our colleagues.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah. I'd add to the ego side of things. It's, it's the social construct of who you think you are. It's that default mode network that's running the operative system within you. And so to step into the line of antigenic plant medicines and start to encounter and discover that ego death? Well, it's kind of putting aside that default network system and allowing you now to be in that, what they would call that unified field, right? That sense of knowing oneness with everything, right? So the program is disconnected for a moment, and now you get to see creation itself. You get to see that oneness experience, and allows you to then bring back that default mode network into the after that experience, and visualize who you are now from that space. So Bufo is a very fast acting peak experience, right? It's 20 minutes that you're going to step into, as you know, as I've heard it been described as well, which is when you're ready to die, be reborn, and meet your creator. That's a 5-MeO DMT Bufo Alfarius experience. So that ego dissolution, is that ego death, is in fact going to happen. That could actually be maybe the more jolting little moment, brief moment of that. But once you break onto the other side of that, it's the most incredible experience. So it allows you to then come back from that, realizing the aspect of what society has taught us, that we are attached, right? And and then that unattachment takes place, and all these things start to shift and change. With ayahuasca, the same ego dissolution can happen in maybe more subtle ways or different ways, but then it comes and you start to, from that default mode program that's within you, you can break that down now and realize your patterns and see yourself differently, and also meet the creator and have all these different perspectives that you didn't have, and allows you to change and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, this, like you said, we could talk about this one for an hour, because it is so fascinating, and it's so, I think part of all this, like the unity consciousness, the white light, the ego dissolution, ego death, however you want to frame it, is kind of a part of one of our birthrights that doesn't get to be honored. And I think as far as being a human and having that full human experience, it's one of the most, profound life-changing experiences someone can have. And for me, in my hundreds and hundreds of experience, the 1,200 micrograms of LSD that created that unity consciousness, white light experience where we're all one, that was life-changing. I mean, it shifted my entire life. And I, forever grateful for that experience more than any other experience. And I think there is so much beauty in that. I mean, it's the ineffable. And for someone to experience that ineffable, it changes everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's incredible value. And I think to some degree it is a goal. I think some degree it's something, again, it's a birthright. To me, it's like, kind of Terence McKenna said this, without, having these psychedelic experiences, it's like never even experiencing an orgasm.
Yeah.
But to experience that place is, again, just going back to what I said before, but a birthright of what it is to be human and to be connected to something greater than thyself.
It's that biohack that our ancestors left us behind. Listen, human, don't get into that program mode. Here's this, you can break away, check in with us, and come back to that.
Yeah, and to be, see outside of yourself where there is no self. I mean, there's, Okay, we could keep going. Let's go to another question though. Okay. So, segue, perfect. What do you think modern society is missing that traditional cultures understood? Wow, divine timing right there on that question.
Yeah, connection. I think our current society, we're getting more connected to digitally and less connected within our humanity with each other, learning how to communicate things that are challenging with love and clarity. Traditional cultures, I think, coming together as humans, coming together and to celebrate and also accept people for who they are, to hold them in that space with joys of seeing growth, but also love and embrace of who they are. I think especially in Western culture, we got this idea that failure is shunned, especially women, but men as well. And so I think that's a main thing that traditional cultures understood, is come together and let's work together, heal together, grow together, dance together, sing together.
I'd probably segue into that by saying, connection is what our modern society continues to miss, is connection to earth, to nature, to oneself, to our brothers and sisters, just connection, human connection. I mean, and mind you, this modern society is perfectly designed to entrap you in this belief system that they create for you. And of course, it's that's where it's fundamentally important to question everything and question your reality and step out of that, and you bring that critical thinking into place. But the connection, you know, our ancestors had it right. I have a simple mission in life, and it's back to basics. Like, you know, I don't have to create anything. Our ancestors did it perfectly. You know, I trust more historical facts from indigenous tribes than anything in modernly written and manipulated. So I really go back into the importance of how our cultures, in one area that we respect tremendously through Behold retreats and even our foundational work that we do with the Sovereignty Alliance. And we really embrace the importance of tradition. If you're going to step into psychedelic work, I think it's important to at least step into it the first time, knowing the traditions and how things work. It's worked for thousands of years perfectly, right? And we see modern society trying to step into it again and say, oh, we're going to change it and alter it here and make it better for you. But in reality, it's perfect as is. You know, there's a lot we're gaining through some of the research and that I like and I also see. But in reality, step in first, knowing how it used to. It's almost like, you know, if you're going to be a pilot, just learn how to navigate without all the computers, or if you're going to navigate in the ocean, you know, just learn the basics of certain things. That's one of them.
Yeah, the big one for me on this one is connection. And the core, we're tribal. We've always been tribal. We've been we're pack animals, and we've become, you know, it's a society of distraction right now, a culture of distraction and a culture of separation. And the irony, we all seek and want vulnerability and connection, but we're in these, you know, creating the opposite right now.
Yeah. I didn't learn the word interdependence, I think, until I was 38 years old. I thought the opposite of dependent was independent. And so that was what you strive for, is independence. I used to define independence as what can I do by myself? Or I would, define strength as what can I do by myself? And then I learned that I can go pretty far, but I can go a whole lot farther with others.
Yeah. Yes. The power of many.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Next one here. Ooh, another good one. This one, I mean, you know, these tied together nicely. If ancient cultures had rites of passage, what are ours today?
I feel like you'd have a more abrupt answer than me. So we definitely have transitions still, but I don't think we celebrate them by surrounding ourselves with wise women and wise men to like guide us. And so, for example, we graduate from school, we might get our license, we get married, promotions at work. However, the becoming a woman, even from premenopausal and menopausal, going into that wise woman, we frequently are left alone. We aren't surrounded by people guiding us and celebrating these things. And therefore, when they're challenging, we think there's something wrong with us, as opposed to what might actually be there, and then building love and community and strength. I think the same with men. We're missing rites of passages. And so I think that people are looking for them in ways in which just bring your adrenaline up, for example, as opposed to sincere transitions from a part of our life into the next part of our life.
You know, I'll say that, you know, we use the word ancient cultures, for instance, and so that means that we are modern cultures. And I think we're missing and lacking culture altogether. I think everything is being rewritten, reshaped, and changed. And I think we are a modern society of citizens. And of course, we have been indoctrinated as such. And of course, that level of indoctrination and way of has shifted all of these rite of passages. They've changed them to be. We're talking about, we're living in a dysfunctional society, right? So what are we doing following the rules of dysfunctionality to begin with? So it makes no sense to follow those rules. That's why I think bringing back these ancient traditions are critically important. It shows us back where the true value and meanings were. It's not embracing this modernism that we're chasing and to dehumanizing ourselves. I think we need to come back and step into that ancient wisdom, ancient knowledge that lies within all of us. well, it's one of the things that we do through Behold is help people remember, right? It's all encoded in our DNA. We have all that wisdom and knowledge we can tap into through an altered state of consciousness, into that ether of information where all the great minds and geniuses have stepped into and have access to, where all the biggest musicians can access that. We all have that same innate ability amongst us. And I think it's important. The society has pushed us into breaking away from our own powers that we have and our own ability to self-heal, this incredible intelligence of a being that needs to be sovereign on this earth, and that we can walk. But it's important to understand, like, the level and complexity of control that life puts us today. They've controlled our minds over the last decades with television, and they do it even more now with these smaller little apparatuses that walk around with us in our pocket, and they continue to disassociate ourselves of who we truly really are. And as you mentioned, fully distracted. And the more we enter into that presence, more we enter into these cultural practice, and more we understand it, the more powerful and more insights we gain and we believe. So I think it's critically important to embrace traditions, the right cultures that you can learn from so much from that. So I think there's a lot of work that our society needs to start embracing something.
Yeah. So this is a huge one, because I think, like, right now, like, what is it, the rite of a passage for a teenager is maybe go to college and get drunk.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And party.
Yeah.
And I think where we're really missing the boat is with teens, and no rite of passage for teenage boys or teenage women. And I think it's such a critical point of shift from boyhood, girlhood into manhood or womanhood, and to honor that, and to have something that welcomes them into this greater part that this person's going to greater part of the world that this person's going to be taking part of. And there's none of that.
I resonate with that tremendously. I mean, we look at it in the way that we're like, I feel that our youth is in dire need of these plant medicines or ability to reconnect us more than anybody else. The older you get, the more decades of programming and kind of this luggage you're carrying around is bigger. And for me, on a personal level, I'm really in that curious design to see how one can help the youth, and also how can we end those that are in their latter stage of life, right? Those that are essentially exactly in transition, let's say. And that's so those are two independent areas that I would love to explore and help. And of course, it's important need.
Yeah.
You're looking at me like I have something to say.
Well, yeah, before I was going to say something, you had something to say.
And then my final 2 cents back to cash value here is just even what I would love to see is the wisdom of elders coming back into society.
Yeah. I'll add a close friend of mine who we grew up together and we're still close today. Neither of us had that rites of passage when we came into our womanhood, maybe 12, 13 years old. And we were just kind of like, here's some products for you, and then you figure it out. And my friend, her daughter just had her first moon cycle, and she was like, I don't want to be over the top and weird, because we are over the top and I think interesting. But with her daughter's permission and her daughter's design, she did invite decades of people over. So women in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, and had a beautiful event. It wasn't over the top or embarrassing, but it was a space in which wise woman got to share with her young daughter, here's some things that might help you on this path. And they had a great time, and it was beautiful. And she dressed up and put flowers in her hair. And so to go back to these sweet moments and receiving the wisdom and the importance of young girls right now having self-confidence and self-worth, and listening to the wise women of saying, here's where you could be led astray, come back, and we're always here for you. And my friend and I also talked about premenopausal and menopausal times that are around the corner, that I don't want to be alone feeling misunderstood or misdirected, or any inauthenticities in my life that my new hormones can't handle. And so now I'm angry. I want to be around other wise women that have guidance for me. And so I am going to find those rites of passages. I'm going to find those groups. And even in the ceremonies that we do, we were talking about many people feel like they have a block and they don't know what it is and they're ready to transform. And so there's a couple things that can happen here. Let's figure out what those blocks are and release them. And then let's create the space in which we honor and maybe even mourn the piece of us we're about to say goodbye to as we celebrate the new piece. There's so many identity shifts that people are being coached on. Here, find your new identity and charge forward without the appreciation of the former identity. And then that piece is lacking.
Yeah. I think you mentioned something like bringing back that knowledge from the elders, and that's huge. We've lost that because our society is preps us to like, oh, well, let's just get our kids out of the house and like, just out of the nest and, just leave them. Whereas still in Latin America, there's still that sense of everyone stays in that home nucleus, let's say. But it's in that separation that we've gained a breakage of knowledge and wisdom. Like it's not the grandparents anymore passing down that wisdom. It's not the parents anymore because the life is so busy and you're on a constant productivity that you forget. And so we love when we have like a father and daughter or mother and son come to our retreat. It is huge.
That's huge.
They're not even like, people don't even realize the level of powerful healing aspect that takes place generationally within that work they're doing. Just the DNA change and shift, and when you're doing it with siblings, it is ultimately changing timelines. It just look at it one way. They're like we have guests that have come here, and nobody in their lineage has ever stopped 1 minute to do some self-healing and self-work or inner work or self-actualization. No one. So they are really the ones that are stepping into that and shifting that whole entire chain of events and lineage that goes through. So it's powerful when you see it with family groups or siblings, which is powerful.
Ooh, I love that. That'd be awesome to just have, just even like one group where it's all family, dads and daughters and moms and sons, and the whole circle is that. That's very cool. It gets me. I have 4 kids, so I'm already going, How do I get them to Costa Rica? All 4 of us or 5.
Yeah, come see us.
Because it'd be amazing someday. Yes. Okay. I got to check. Okay, we've got time for probably more 3 or 4 questions. Maybe the way we're going here, maybe 1 in a good way. So this one's interesting because we've been talking about how wonderful these are and everything. And then but also let's talk about this flip side. Does anyone end up worse after a psychedelic experience or experiences?
So there's a couple areas that we could talk about this in. One, I'm just going to go on the self-responsibility. So many people in ceremonies have a beautiful opportunity to see the highest version of themselves, to meet that version, to see that beauty, to see that strength. And they also, and this can be challenging, I have gone through this challenge multiple times of seeing where we are now. And luckily within the space, it's very heart opening. It's not critique of the past. It's here's a path for the future. Now, say I leave that experience and then I go right back into the same environment in which I was before, and I had commitments or ideas during my experience or within the week, and I don't follow up on them. It's like now I know something, I knew it better than before. And so if I don't take the steps, I am now aware and maybe feeling lack in myself. And so that's where one area in where somebody could, worse is a strong word, but it's like knowing something and doing nothing about it is worse than not knowing and not doing anything about it.
Right.
So that's not the deeper level of worse, but it's a psychological level at which this is why it's important for us to connect with people that are committed to the change. If you find out something that would better your life, are you committed to taking those steps? Because if you're not, then you might as well, I don't want to say you might as well not know, because one day you might, but that's one area.
Yeah. I have a question within the question, because in the sense of like end up worse, right? So what I'm going to share doesn't fall within ending up, but it can be part of the process, right? When you after a psychedelic experience. So, one of the things that occurs, of course, in a psychedelic experience is that the veil will be lifted. You've been walking with these glasses that all of a sudden, you take the glasses away and you start to see things that before you had no awareness, right? You had absolutely no understanding of things that now you're starting to either resonate or have dissonance with, right?
Mhm.
So these are things that can be quite uncomfortable, but it's all part of that awakening process. It's part of that shift that's happening. It's not where you're going to end up. This is now gives you clarity of this 3D world or matrix, however you want to call that, and also seeing beyond that, right? Beyond the veil. And now you're able to now look at both and seeing and have a deeper, greater understanding and meaning of so much, by the way. We can go on for this. So the element of ultimately walking around with it where you're now, realizing you're not in the same frequency that you were when you were just hammering yourself, to distraction with drinks and doing all these things that you already know within your heart of hearts that, wasn't benefiting you in any way. So those are things that people can feel that they're, ending worse, but it's not ending, it's taking you to a place. Now, of course, all that within, like what Sarah says, the commitment of desire of change, because you have to change it's ayahuasca or any of these entheogenic plant medicines. They're just going to show you, they're not going to do it for you. So it's really the commitment of realizing in what is valuable in your life again, and you start to appreciate things in a way, in a perspective that you weren't seeing before. You were walking down this hallway all your life, and you did a psychedelic experience that has this area of the brain that has been dormant, stagnant, or atrophied the majority of your life, and all of a sudden it's sensible now. It's malleable. It's in a way that you can perceive where you weren't perceiving anymore, because one of the beautiful things about these plant teachers is that they help align and activate all your other senses more than just the 5 senses we're taught. And when you're able to walk life in a field of perception, then you're able to discern properly by guidance. And we're talking our higher self guidance that is guiding us through this world that we have created for ourselves. So I think those are key aspects of the change that people can see through that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that aspect, the words end up. It reminds me of, so on our retreat, during some of the integration workshops and the tools that we give people, we say, don't make any big decisions for 30 days.
Yes.
Make a plan. So say, for example, somebody says, I'm going to quit my job. If you go home and quit your job the next day versus make a plan in 30 days, it could be very disruptive if you make big changes quickly versus make a plan and then implement later. And I guess if you expand that out years, we have beautiful friends that had a very disruptive experience a long time ago because they're set and setting. And we can talk a bit about that. Their set wasn't strong and their setting wasn't strong. And so they made a major disruption in their life. That disruption had since led them into a path of full exploration, becoming a yogi, maybe even entering plant medicine. And so that time frame of 10 years later, they might be very happy about that very disruptive event. Now, I do think we could do things to make that very disruptive event not so disruptive to all of those people around us. And so I like that idea that with enough time, that event, we could be very grateful for it. So that's true. Yes, but I do want to talk about safety for just a bit.
Sure, please.
Danny nor I, for every retreat that we've ever been to, or I guess not retreat, ceremony we have ever been to, neither one of us has ever been asked for a medical evaluation except for Iboga. We just went, and some of them, they didn't even know my name. And so there are areas where a lot of us have minds in which we could use some opening to it. We have programs and we run them. There are some minds that are already too open, and psychedelics could make them worse off. And so
yes.
This could be something, I don't use the word mental illness because I think that there are mental gifts. But for example, if somebody has what is being diagnosed as schizophrenia, this greater opening is not helpful for them. And so this wouldn't be something, they could end up worse. And so there's a level of literal physiologically, psychologically, and then just making decisions set and setting that could be very disruptive.
Got it. 100% on that one. Yeah, like I think it said at some point, I think the ultimate goal for any of us practitioners out there is do no harm.
Do no harm.
And, building again back to what we were talking about, that's, the necessity of the safe container, the wise practitioners. Then again, that's the whole thing around set and setting. So we're pretty much at our hour mark. But one thing I want to kind of leave with is kind of a question for if someone's curious about this. They've never done a psychedelic experience, but they're really interested in, and not something, maybe not someone with any like severe mental illness or trauma, but just the general curious person out there. What would you recommend as far as where do they start? What do they do? What is there medicine you'd recommend over, some plant medicine you'd recommend over the other one? Or just for the newbie out there, what words of wisdom between the two of you would you offer to those folks?
I'd say, I think the first plant medicine to start to work with is those that grow naturally in your garden, or hopefully at a farmer's market somewhere. Plant medicines come in many different ways. And I think that knowing that and connecting to that is a good first step. Mm-hmm. The rest is, certainly dependent on where the human is at, right? Are you in a place for expansion, or are you in a place for healing? And sometimes the person, looking for expansion might not even aware of there's a healing modality aspect that needed to be covered, or even ancestrally for that matter. But ultimately is really having that, matching of what is the right path and the step. And I think that's one of the things we pride ourselves at Behold is we do the proper screening. We really have the deep down conversations. We go through a lot of protocols and processes to make sure that we can identify what is the right path and medicine. And even if you're not ready and you don't receive an invite, we're still working with you in a way that can get you to that stage for readiness. Mm-hmm. And I think that those are some first steps.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think that if I were telling somebody that's brand new, I would say find a few places. And that could depend 5 to 10, depending on your personality and your data collection desires. Mm-hmm. And call them and see how that conversation takes place and how it made you feel. If somebody is, just come on down and we'll see how it goes. That's a pink flag that they're not medically taking enough care to see if this is a good fit for you. Mm-hmm. The conversation should feel like an interview both ways. You should be interviewing that person to making sure that what they build to hold this container is what you also need to fully surrender, to be safe and feel safe. And so make those calls and go slow. Take the time and check in with your heart, check in with your mind, check in with your gut. It could be a full body decision on where to go. Yes. And there is no rush to it, right? Like take your time, do the research, and then go with what is also within your needs, within your capabilities.
Yeah. And this, I think I say this on every one of these webinars, but for me, with that question, the most important thing is listen to yourself.
Yeah.
And also, and again, go slow. And sometimes just realize that you might feel like it's the right time, everything's set up, and then it doesn't feel like the right time. Awesome. Don't push it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just, the key, listen to yourself, heart, mind, body, belly, whatever. And you'll know. You'll know when it's right. You'll know the right medicine.
And follow through, right? Listen and follow through.
Follow through. That's the big one.
That's the ego that will talk us out of what our soul and our spirit
analysis
is saying.
paralysis.
Beware of that. No, I agree with that too. And then the big, super important final question: how do people get more information on Behold?
Yeah, it's an easy one. Just you can find us online. Just do Behold Retreats, and we will pop up.
You'll find all our connections.
You'll find everywhere. It's probably the simplest way. There are some great videos of past guest experiences that you can kind of go in through, whether it's through YouTube or social media channels. But ultimately, if you do a courier search for us, you'll find us. I think it's if you're not really sure and you're just kind of exploring and wanting to just give it a shot, give it a try and figure out to listen and ask questions. And there's no commitment here on anything. We want the right people that are really feeling that desire to explore themselves even further, that to reach out.
Ayahuasca and plant medicines are something that cannot be sold. People can help guide you to a full no, or you to listen to yourself for your full yes. But that's how the conversation should develop and unravel, is informative, connection, and then make the decision.
And go
yes,
for it.
No, or later.
Nowhere later. I like that. And then you guys have centers Costa Rica, Portugal, Mexico, and soon in Venezuela. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You said it first.
You said it 100 times.
Oops.
Yeah. Three incredible countries, of course, and depending on what region of the world you're at, then those could be great places. We do all the works and all the different medicines in all of these locations, and like you said, we're paying a very close eye to Venezuela right now.
Close eye. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. A pleasure to have both of you on board here, and a deep appreciation for the work you're doing, the integrity that you guys are bringing to it. I really appreciate that. Even like the small groups, beautiful. I'm a big fan of quality over quantity, and that whole, again, safety first for these folks.
Do no harm.
Yes, do no harm. So thanks again, and stay tuned. So thanks, guys, and you guys stay tuned, and I'm going to end our stream. Thank you, everyone, for coming aboard to this wonderful journey of plant medicines with Danny and Sarah. This was Webdelics, Steve ElFrink, signing off.